A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 56th edition of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. It feels amazing to even say 56th edition. Months ago, when the lockdown had just started, we set up this series of webinars to help our educators become more conversant with the various digital learning methodologies that were out there. One of them, of course, was Zoom, the platform we all are on now. To have them more used to the Zoom platform, the Together for Education webinar was set up. We have come a long way. We have gone way past that point because we have now had the privilege of discussing various issues around our school education system, be it curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular, about mental health, and so much more. At the same time, to help our educators get more conversant with our platform, Notebook, we also set up a series of teachers training programs online. Notebook is one of those digital education tools that teachers have found useful during this lockdown to conduct their classes online. What we learned in the process was the importance of empowering our educators with the latest trends in education. The feedback was phenomenal. We had the privilege of training teachers from across 1,000 schools, and the total number of teachers that we interacted with during the course of our teachers training programs went past 1 lakh. It has been a huge achievement for us, and we consider it our proud privilege. Before we start the session for today, which is all about empowering educators, what I will do now is play a short clip of one of our teachers training sessions because we believe in the power of why. And the entire training program was hinged upon why our platform Notebook was something that teachers could find useful. Thank you, Vivek. If you can see my screen, this is the typical academic year. There are unit tests and class tests leading up to a major exam with classes in between. While learning in class, the students need something that will, increase their interest and curiosity. The video that you're watching just now, we call it an interest builder. The author's background, engaging quotes, small anecdotes, and bits of information all serve to raise the interest level of students and create a natural curiosity about the topic. For instance, while teaching, let's say, coordinate geometry, which is something that some students struggle with in understanding how a relative coordinate system works, we start again with a short interest builder.
Let's recall the kitchen shelf example. The sugar box was located by measuring specific distances from two reference line segments. We had moved to the third unit from the left. Next, we had moved up 2 units from the bottom. And yes, there was our box. These two edges are equivalent to the x-axis and the y-axis. The entire face of the cupboard is similar to the Cartesian plane. To identify any point on the Cartesian plane, we need two numbers, which are 3 and 2 here. Since we involve two axes here, this portion of coordinate geometry is known as two-dimensional coordinate geometry.
The key here is building relatable relevance. For example, as we said here, coordinate geometry, it is immensely important that students can grasp the concept of a Cartesian plane and identify. Well, that was one of our typical training sessions where we used snippets of our videos and also told educators how they might use Notebook in an online class setting. But well, that is just one facet of a large area in education called teachers training. Today, we have eminent panelists with us and eminent speakers who will help us dive deep into this issue and understand it better. So without much ado, let me call upon our first speaker. Our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the deputy headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Burrett served the Doon School as housemaster, head of department, dean of student welfare, dean of activities, deputy headmaster, second master, and acting headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Barrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. Sir, privileged to have you with us. Over to you.
Good evening, Shubhayu. I hope
Good
I'm
evening, sir.
audible.
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shubhayu. Good evening to you, Achan, Abhishek, and the entire Notebook team, as well as our esteemed panelists, Sister Lobo and Mrs. Sahai, and all those good people who have tuned in this evening. So I am going to look at this topic from the standpoint of empowering teachers more than anything else, because I feel that the single most important factor in the entire process of education are teachers, not so much facilities and curriculum and the clientele. Of course, these things do matter, but the individual teacher has to be empowered, because in empowering the teacher, you empower education. So I think the first thing is to make the teacher a stakeholder in the entire system, along with parents, alumni, board members, principals, senior management team. I think it's important and incumbent on the administration to make the teacher a pivotal part of this whole team. He is not, or she is not, someone who is paid for coming into class in the morning and walking home in the evening. I think it's important that the teacher sees herself as a part of this entire team. Often staff meetings are very one way. The head speaks to the teacher and the teacher does what he is or she is told. But do teachers speak up? Are teachers empowered to have their own opinions? Can they disagree? Will it go against them if they disagree? Do you listen to every teacher, even the most junior teachers of all? So empowerment starts with trying to make the teacher a part of the school so that he feels and he belongs to the school. The second is, I think, teachers come to school with prerequisite qualifications and they stay on in the job 9 to 6, 24/7. There's hardly any time to improve and better oneself. But I think it's important that the school system brings about in-service training for teachers. And this is the way in which teachers grow. I think most schools should have a budget of 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, and a sort of mandate where teachers have to undergo at least a certain amount of hours of training, workshops, certain, attending skill-based and training of, that teachers go for. And I think every teacher has to be heavily in-service training. And it's important that schools open their own teacher centers, which also can cater to the smaller schools around them. So by training the teacher, you empower the teacher. You empower the teacher because he's improving by the day. The other thing is the value that we put on the profession. Now, in Finland, other European countries, Australia, and even Bhutan, our very best students go into teaching because the government and the people empower teachers by the value that they give this profession. While in India, the feeling is that, if there's nothing else to do, you become a teacher. I think we need to look at how we value this job. Would parents like their children to be teachers, for example? So I don't know how this is going to be done, but at the government level, I think teachers have to be up there with the best paid professionals. Also, there are types of teachers. There are people who are qualified, but with the wrong attitude, and teachers who are not that qualified, but they have good attitude. I think it's important that school administrators look at attitude more than qualifications, because while you can train a teacher with good attitude, which means openness to new ideas, is he keen to evolve, learn, improve, change? I think it's important to get people with good attitude and train them rather than have people with huge paper degrees with poor attitudes. Because this again sets, when you have a teacher with a wrong attitude in a class, in a staff room, he sets, it's like a rotten apple. The other thing, the graph that I would like to be shown right now, Shubhayu. So, on the one hand, have got a strong will to do and also skills. At the same time, if your skills are high and your will is less, you can motivate him. If your will is high but your skills are low, you can guide. And if they are both low, as in the extreme southwest corner, we'll need to direct these teachers. So teachers have to be guided, goaded, and monitored if you want to empower them. The other graph that comes up next is the support versus challenge graph. This is important because, on the one hand, you challenge teachers, and on the other hand, you have to support them. So the flow arrow, which is the orange arrow, is the are teachers who are highly challenged and also highly supported. But what happens is that a lot of teachers are challenged low, but they have high skills, so that you get boredom. You get teachers who are bored. Teachers with low skills and low challenge are apathetic. They go to sleep. And if you highly challenge a teacher and who's got low skills or you've got low support, you lead to anxiety. So the best would be teachers who are challenged need support of the institution. I'll give you an example. If I had to play the best tennis player, let's say, Rafael Nadal tomorrow, I'd lose. I'd lose 6-love in 5 minutes because I have been over challenged and under supported. But if I was to be sent for coaching to Florida and be trained, from a young age, then I am supported. So teachers often are asked to do things by the school administration, but lack support. How can a teacher put up a play or a drama or do something new if he's not financially supported? The other thing is, now in this, the COVID has thrown up great opportunities for teachers and administrators to learn new ways of delivering their lessons. Because we all agree that when things return to normal, if there is a normal, there's going to be blended learning, blended teaching. And so therefore, I think it's incumbent on teachers to be empowered. This is the time to empower teachers with the skills of online and digital learning. And the other thing I think is that we as principals, as headmasters, we have to allow the teachers to take risks, not to stifle growth, not to thwart initiative. Often empowerment of teachers comes through allowing them to take initiative and risks. Now, I had a headmaster who was brilliant at this. He threw challenges our way and supported us. He wanted paper recycling, so he said to a teacher, go get the machines, go read about it, go to Calcutta, get a training. I want a recycling plant. Another teacher was told to go and read up and study about compost pits, because in our school, we had a lot of trees and leaf litter, and we generated huge amounts of leaf. He wanted to start compost pits. Then he started ambulance services, where our ambulance was used for serving the public. He started risk management. So what I showed interest in learning about safety. So he sent me on a course held by the police to study safety on school campuses. In other words, to empower a teacher is to challenge him, to take risks, and to allow him to make mistakes. Because only when a teacher develops other skills other than his classroom skills, let's say counseling skills, music skills, art, coaching, only when a teacher develops another side to another facet to himself or herself, do you empower him. I think another thing is to let teachers go to other schools within the country and outside the country. These exchanges with other teachers open the eyes of a teacher. You empower the teacher because he learns how things are done. I was sent for a month to a school called the Athenian School in San Francisco. And I tell you, I came back with a fund of ideas, new ideas. I learned that I was doing things the wrong way. I think you empower teachers by sending them out. The other thing is, as the visual shows, I think it's important to induct a new teacher. And I think schools need to work on very, very good and well thought of induction processes guides him. Often a new teacher joins school and is, left to his own devices. He's got to find out about the school on his own. I think that's not respecting the teacher. And lastly, I think teachers need to be helped financially. There should be some sort of perks coming his way. A lot of us teachers work 24/7, and at the end of the day, we don't have much, to look forward to. I think teachers need book allowances, they need educational loans, they need health insurance. I think health is a very important thing because teachers need to be healthy. They stand and teach 24/7, 40 years. And I think another thing is that heads of school sometimes, when parents come in and criticize teachers, we side with the outsiders. I think that teachers must feel that the administration backs them, believes in them, and that he is valuable or she is valuable. Annual appraisals, which are meant to be a dialogue between the teacher and the head. This is the process of feedback where the teacher can ask for what he wants, where he thinks he can grow. Because unless a teacher sees growth areas, he stagnates. And this is the time that the administration gives the teacher feedback on what he's doing good, where he's doing well, and what he needs to work on. I think a constant feedback appraisal system, two-way system, where the teacher talks and the headmaster talks, is important. And another thing is that sometimes the principals or heads of schools are unapproachable. You can't meet them. There's so much red tapeism that he has to go to the proper channels. I think heads of schools should be open and accessible to teachers so that the teachers can have a constant sort of feedback, dialoguing. There's so much nepotism, so much bullying amongst teachers, so much harassment from senior colleagues sometimes. All these undermine teacher empowerment. I would also stress a lot on emotional and mental health of teachers. Some companies are called in by schools to check on stress levels, and they find that teachers are highly stressed people. They suffer from ill health. I think that we need to look at emotional and mental health of teachers, giving them sabbaticals. They should be counselors in school, which also help teachers. And of course, there should be a system of rewards and kudos for teachers, constant support from the senior management team. Companies like Edison are very good at this. They slip a small package into a teacher's hand, saying a holiday for you and your family for work well done. Other companies they stress on health by giving an employer a 1-year subscription to a good gym. These are small rewards from the administration that go a long way in empowering teachers. And lastly, I'd say that there's a general tendency on the part of schools to keep adding to the workload of a teacher. A teacher comes in to teach a subject, but gradually is given games, he's given a SUPW, he's given music, he's given this duty and that duty, escorting teams, all very well. And this is a very important thing for a teacher. But I think there has to be a limit and there has to be some check on, amount of load. This can be disheartening. It can be frustrating for some teachers who are given more load than others. Also, if you look at the new education policy, the government has promised laws that help support schools, help empower schools, do not thwart initiative and growth that schools might want to take. I just hope that these promises are kept and that the laws are made to empower school heads so that they can empower their teachers. Thank you very much. I hope this has made some sense. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Week after week, we have had the benefit of you opening. However, on the 56th episode, there is something that you said that we would like to vehemently disagree with. I think Rafael Nadal in front of you will never win 6-love, 6-love. I think he'll have to face a fair fight.
Thank you so much.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to bring on our next speaker. Our next speaker is Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubhaya, am I audible?
Loud and clear, Achin.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a topic which I believe is very important. Any society, any nation which really wants to develop itself, there cannot be any alternative but to invest in education. And when we say invest in education, as Bharat also very rightfully mentioned, it's not only about infra, it's not only about the kind of facilities that we provide, but much more important is the human element. Much more important is how much as a society we are investing in our teachers, who are the architects of tomorrow. As we say that it takes a subject and a verb to make a sentence. Likewise, it takes a teacher and a student to make a classroom. Now, today when we discuss this, first and foremost, the topic of empowering educators, if we just keep it aside for a moment, and if you look at any profession, any new age profession for that matter. So when I say new age profession, I mean how these professions are performed in this age. Needs are eternal. So any profession that you look at, which has been around from times immemorial. So whether that be a doctor, a lawyer, or even your neighborhood astrologer, soothsayer. One thing that is common, one challenge that all these professionals face in today's age, which is very different from what their predecessors faced few decades back, is that flow of information is really democratic thanks to internet. So today, when a patient walks into a doctor's chamber and describes about his or her ailment, not only does he or she describe about the ailment, but in all probabilities, he has already done a Google search and found out the probable causes and possible line of treatment. Now, at times, and quite rightfully, doctors do get irritated when patient starts asking questions with regard to the fact that, why this, why not that? Do you think this can be a possible line of treatment? Naturally, as if you look at things from doctor's perspective, with this kind of education from public portals, it's more like a half-baked cookie. So naturally, they're irritated. But if you look at things from patient's perspective, considering the fact that flow of information is so democratic, naturally, when they're suffering, first natural reaction is to do a search on the internet and find out. And that's true with lawyers. That's true with astrologers. Today, when somebody walks into an astrologer's chamber, in all likelihood, they've already seen a computerized horoscope. and they're there only for finer queries. So that means any service provider, any professional in today's age is no longer an information provider. Those days are gone, because flow of information, we need to come to terms with it, is abundant, is democratic, is round the clock. So that really makes the job of any professional far more challenging than his or her predecessors. It's really challenging. There's no denying the fact. So today's students, they are no longer passive recipients of knowledge. They are active co-creators of knowledge. And there are various sources of information that they can look up to. So the role of new age educator is really far more challenging. In today's age, a teacher is not only source of information, but also a moderator, a facilitator, somebody who can really moderate great engaging discussions, especially when you go to higher classes, to ensure peer-to-peer learning, ensure engaging discussions within the class, somebody who is a confident and mature mentor. So in today's age, the challenges are enormous. There's no denying the fact. So the question is, how do we empower our educators? Because the importance of educators, as we discussed, we cannot deny it. It's tremendous, right? And only a 21st century teacher can teach a 21st century student. Now, I was recently going through the new education policy 2020, and I saw a lot of fantastic initiatives have been taken. A lot of steps have been taken, a lot of great things mentioned. To mention a few, the concept of teachers eligibility test has been strengthened. It has been around for quite some time. It has been strengthened. It has been around in various states in various ways. The policy has also emphasized on ensuring that there are adequate number of teachers across subjects. Some very interesting concepts have come, like the concept of master instructor, local eminent persons whom schools can invite for lectures, who can come on board and teach students. The concept of requirement planning in a more systematic, tech-based way at a state level has been brought in. A lot of emphasis has been given on service conditions, because unless and until teachers are really encouraged by favorable service conditions, their needs are taken care of, how do they really concentrate? How do they really give their best? Because the best and brightest do need to come to teaching profession. And that's really important. Again, the policy specifically states that teachers need to be given more autonomy as far as deciding pedagogy is concerned. So I guess these are fantastic aspects. Also, the concept of CPD, continuing professional development. Now, continuing professional development, as you are aware, in any profession across the world, there are some mandatory requirements with regard to continuing professional education, CPE or CPD, as you call it. And that's true in our country as well. Across the board, different professions, there are different regulations. So the concept of CPD has been strengthened. And the fact that continuous investment in trainings, workshops, seminars need to be made as a society has not only been acknowledged, but also there's a firm resolve in place, which I think is great. Again, a lot of stress is there on career management and progression, CMP. So how do we really take care of teachers' careers, career progression? Now, as far as policy is concerned, the intent is in place. As far as implementation is concerned, naturally, there are a lot of other things that will need to come on board. Various stakeholders will need to come on board. But at least in principle, there's no denying the fact that problems or issues or challenges that we live with have been honestly acknowledged. I think that's a great start. Also, the role of special educators and the need of special educators in today's age has been acknowledged. The fact that we need more special educators and various steps need to be taken in this regard. Again, B.Ed courses by 2030, 4-year B.Ed courses, how they are going to be so important for recruitment of new teachers has been specifically mentioned in the policy. So, as we were discussing, coming to the part where we started discussion from, that as far as new age skills are concerned, because it's really important that these steps be implemented. And again, when we talk of new age skills, considering the kind of changes that we are going through as a society, especially as far as technology is concerned, a lot of changes are happening. Now, as we all know, change is the only thing that is constant. So changes have been happening from times immemorial. But how today's times are different is the pace at which these changes are happening is really frantic as far as technology is concerned. What is hot and happening today literally becomes obsolete 1 year down the line. So that's the kind of challenge that we all live with. So naturally, a lot of focus, a lot of investment needs to go on this area, in this particular area, to ensure that teachers acquire newer skills. Now, this recent COVID pandemic, for instance, has been an eye-opener for all of us. Because when we discuss about empowering educators, when we discuss about newer skills, when we discuss about getting out of our comfort zones, when we discuss about stepping up to the challenge, there couldn't have been a more real life example of this other than the current crisis, which has truly been the worst humanitarian crisis in our lifetimes. Easily the worst one, right? It's almost a year, things are out of gear. Schools are closed. But I'll say, if you look at the pandemic and its effect, undoubtedly, it has also highlighted few aspects. It has highlighted the fact that the role of teachers, I'll say, as important as frontline workers in health, in public administration, stepping up to the challenge, being able to ensure that schooling is on. So, skills like IT skills, teachers have been asked to create content. A great teacher who has been doing a phenomenal job for decades in a classroom setting has been suddenly asked to step up and teach online. And I must acknowledge that teachers have done a great job at it. There's no denying the fact. But the fact, what this pandemic really proves is that any point of time, at any stage of our careers, we may need to take a test. We may need to get out of our comfort zones and really step up to the challenge. So skills like content creation skills, adaptability skills, and adaptability also is a huge factor. Social skills. And I guess one of the most important challenges in this recent pandemic that has been thrown to teachers is handling students' emotions. So handling students face-to-face with physical access and handling them remotely, especially young learners, students who are in initial years of school, ensuring that they take these online classes in a disciplined manner is not easy. It's really a huge task. And kudos to teachers who have stepped up to the challenge. But what this really proves is that the kind of empowerment that is needed, the kind of skill, the kind of continuous investment in skill upgradation that is needed is beyond words. Now, this COVID pandemic has literally rewritten the syllabus for 2021 school year. And as we discussed, teachers are facing formidable challenges. Educating students in mass craft fashion, socially distant classrooms, virtually from computer screens. And what we're really seeing is lot of challenging circumstances have, and not only for teachers, for parents as well, who had to double up as teachers, step into their shoes and ensure that children are in front of their systems during school hours. For teachers who had to literally deal with parents sitting just beside the child, looking at their screens, and at times continuously evaluating the teacher. And that's a challenge, right? But irrespective of that, there's no doubt about it that our teachers have done a fantastic job, phenomenal job, I'll say. And the urge to learn, that has really come. But then again, as we discussed, that it has shown the need of continuous investment in our teachers. Helen Keller once very famously said, and I really believe in this, optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. So I guess when we discuss about teaching as a profession, when we discuss about our next generation, when we discuss about times to come, two words which aptly captures our feeling are hope and confidence. So there's no denying the fact that investment in empowering our educators is the need of the hour. Now, again, another huge challenge that today's educators face is with so much of options, with so much of distractions that students face on a day-to-day basis, with so much of, short videos being forwarded on WhatsApp, open source platforms like YouTube, any topic, virtually thousands of videos, so many activities the students are into. And those are the need of the hour, practically. With so many things jostling for mind space, jostling for attention, competing with each other, for new age educators, being able to ensure that not only do they connect with the student, but also they're able to get their fair share, not only in terms of time, but in terms of mind space, in terms of being able to build a connect and deliver. So there's a huge, I'll say, psychological angle to it. So the need for building on soft skills is equally important. So when we talk of upgradation, when we talk of teachers training, not only in terms of pedagogy or domain knowledge, but I guess also as far as soft skills are concerned, as far as psychological issues are concerned, being able to build a connect, these are equally important, if not more. Another very interesting aspect Bharat sir raised, which I completely agree with, is the worldview. Today's students are literally global citizens. We really don't know where they'll be based out of few decades down the line. We really don't know what job we are teaching them for. So unless and until the teacher has a wider worldview, a global view, it is really difficult for him or her to ensure that the student grows up and has a wider worldview. To their credit, educators have still been imparting, as far as teaching is concerned, as far as schooling is concerned in India. I'm very happy to say that schooling in India, and most importantly because of the kind of dedication that teachers bring in, considering the Gurukul Parampara that this country has, that we have inherited as a legacy, considering the Guru Shishya culture that we still have, schooling in India is one of the best in the world. But there's no doubt about the fact that teachers exchange program, wherein teachers also get an opportunity to travel different cultures, teach students from different countries, different ethnicities, and come back with best practices. And it's both ways. Not only do they come back with best practices, but I'm sure there are a lot of good things in our schools, which they're also able to communicate to schools that they go to. And that really helps. As recently, I remember last week, I was speaking to a very senior teacher, a very senior educator, and she was telling me about her experience when she had gone for an exchange program in New Zealand, and how she came back and how she implemented some of those ideas. I really found them fascinating. And I was very happy to hear that it was a two-way process. She also mentioned that when she went there were a few aspects with regard to a science project that she had undertaken back home here, which she was able to implement in New Zealand and got a fantastic response, fantastic review. Things like this really make us so happy and proud. I guess institutional support is really important. Schools need to support teachers, and not only schools. I think as a civil society, we need to support our teachers. We need to realize and understand the kind of challenges that they go through. It's not easy. It's really very difficult. It's not only about the subject matter. A teacher is expected to be equally good and train the student in various activities, extracurricular activities, and it really takes a lot of effort on their part to be participative and contribute. So I guess institutional support is really important. So these are a few things that I wanted to share with all of you. I really look forward to the views of our esteemed panel on this with regard to their real life experiences, etc. I thank all of you for giving me patient hearing. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for sharing those wonderful in-depth views on teachers training, something that we at Notebook really hold close to our hearts. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the discussion that we have today. We are privileged to have with us today Sister Tara Lobo, who is the principal of the Infant Jesus Convent School in Mohali. In today's dynamic world, she believes a 360-degree development in grooming is of supreme importance. She says education is a transformative process which can change the society by changing the outlook of today's child, who will be tomorrow's adult. She and a team of educators are creating an environment at their school for future leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals who possess skills and aptitudes in an array of functional disciplines, and every child there is treated as a unique individual and is nurtured to become an honest and praiseworthy person. Ma'am, privileged to have you with us. We are also privileged to have with us Mrs. Ranjana Shahi, who is the principal of the Delhi Public School, Haldwani. Ma'am, thank you so much for coming back on this platform. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. She's an academician with more than 25 years of experience in teaching, and she's passionate about working with children. An alumnus of St. Mary's Convent and All Saints College, Nainital, she was awarded the Merit of Honor Gold Medal for a master's from Kumaon University in Nainital. After working for 15 years in Delhi, she is now based in Uttarakhand. In 2018, she started as the founder principal of Delhi Public School, Haldwani. An educationist, she possesses a strong commitment to the development of students and staff and the belief of providing a stimulating, safe, motivating, and learning environment. She is very effective in resource, time, and discipline management to achieve academic and co curricular excellence. Her passion is to shape global citizens who have the roots of value and traditions to hold on, for the wings to fly, with the futuristic innovations to reach for the infinite. Ma'am, privileged to have you with us. Thank you both for joining us today. I will now stop the share and request you to switch on your cameras so that we can start the discussion.
Good evening, Shivayu. Good evening to
Good evening, ma'am.
everybody.
Sister Lobo, if you're there, could you please switch on your camera? Yes,
Good
ma'am,
evening,
we can
Sister
see you now.
Lobo.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am. Ranjana, ma'am, if I may come to you first.
Yeah.
Your initial thoughts about today's topic, particularly if you can, with a focus on the empowerment change that you have seen throughout your career.
Well, Shivayu, as said, like this is something which is very, very close to my heart. And my journey from a teacher, from an educator to a principal actually has in between teacher training, as we call it, or professional development. So as a teacher, I always felt training was very, very important. And when I was in Nainital initially, before 2000, I was there, I was teaching, and I always had this thing to know more, to learn better. And I remember that was the time when computers were just introduced. But I took a course separately just to understand what computer was. After 2000, I went to Delhi, and 2003 was my first appointment there. So then, there on, it started this training system. Like, you know, as teachers, we were sent for training. And I could see a mixed reaction amongst my colleagues. Like some of them felt it was like, you know, a waste of time, 1 hour gone there, we have to go, we have to attend this training. But somehow from where I was, I hadn't seen this kind of professional development and all. So obviously I sort of, you know, like a sponge, I was taking it all in, whatever I could learn. Then my journey started in the school where I was in Delhi. And I was a teacher. I underwent a lot of trainings. I remember being very, very eager to attend those trainings. But the beauty of it was that at that point of time, any teacher who went for a training had to come back to school, and because it's a 5-day week. So on Saturdays, we would have a teacher development program. There was a calendar, you know, answering to Mr. Barrett's question. We had a training calendar basically, and teachers who had gone for the training had to take training for the other teachers. So you understand that whatever I had learned, I was able to pass it on to my fellow teachers and all. Obviously, if it was subjective, I would, you know, it was subject based, so it was a department thing. But if it was an overall thing, then we would take a training. Now it was twofold. I was sharing my knowledge, but at the same time presenting it to my fellow teachers and colleagues. I mean, consider it that it was a task in itself to be able to conduct the same training again. It was a big, big challenge. But that's how it started. And it was during that time that I was given the responsibility of heading the training department. And I did not know anything about it. However, I started with making a training calendar. I had great friends and colleagues who helped me out. And I think they are there on the webinar today. So, you know, making a training calendar, deciding, we used to do a SWOT analysis, a need analysis, knowing from teachers that what trainings they wanted and what trainings they could give, because what Mr. Barrett said about in-service training. So teachers who could give a training of something they were good at, but at the same time, what they wanted to get trained in. And we made a calendar accordingly, rather, you know, making that calendar, there was a budget. There was a budget in the school where I was teaching. There was a budget for training. Okay. And when I became the head of training, I was told there would be a budget because we would send the teachers outside school, and CBSE has a training which is like 1,000 per teacher. So we were sending teachers for those trainings, as well as group trainings were being conducted in school where we would shell out money for 25,000 and more than that. So the idea was that each teacher gets trained. So that's when it started with me also, that it's so important for a teacher to get trained. And as we say, the attitude which we were talking about, I had excellent teachers, but somehow some of them very good with their subject knowledge and all, but we need to get updated. So the training program helped us to do that. So updating and, getting empowered through training is very, very important. And I think once we have our question and answer round and all, I think we could elaborate further. But henceforth, when I did this training for 1.5 years, I was the head. And thereafter, I was asked to take over as the officiating principal of the school. But training was something which has always been a very, very passionate thing with me, besides my students, that is. And with training, I have realized that, even an average person can be made into an excellent, excellent educator. Trust me, it's like when you practice, you can do anything, be it athletics, be it co-curricular, anything. The same thing is with teachers. You give them the right direction, you give them the guidance, you give them the right kind of training, the training which they need, not something which you feel is, just passed on to you, something which they need. You give it to them, and trust me, you would have dynamic teachers in hand. And I had the privilege and the honor of working with such dynamic teachers in Delhi. And the same thing is something which I'm trying to build up here in Haldwani. That, I have that team which is just trained. They get as passionate about it that it's no longer a job. It's something that they enjoy doing. That's what I want to do here also. And that's why this topic is very, very close to my heart. I think I've taken enough of your time. You would want Sister Lobo to speak.
Not at all, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. Sister Lobo, if we can come to you for your opening remarks, particularly since you're associated with a church school, if you could also tell us about the culture of training that you have in each school.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yes. The culture of training that we have, what I would say is, first of all, see, today in today's world, when we look for a teacher, when we select a candidate, what do we see? Academic excellence, achievements, and experiences. But at the same time, we fail at times their attitude towards learning, because unless one learns, they cannot teach others. Okay, we are learners all through our life. It's not what we have finished when we have finished our B.Ed or M.Ed or whatever our qualification may be, but we need to learn every day. Every day is a learning point from our students, from our teachers, from people, from surroundings. Everywhere we learn our right attitude as well as our emotional well-being. That's what I believe in, because they should be emotionally strong. Then they can train our kids. Sometimes we look at the success means for us, percentage. We are at times result oriented. But what I believe is these teachers are not only this manufacturer of material goods, like in the factories. We are training the human minds, molding and shaping the students. And the essential thing is not only knowledge, but character, says Joseph Leconte. However, the fulfillment of everything is possible only where the teachers have awareness of values. They should be aware of the values, not only the matter from the books. Hence, if the teacher is full of sadguna, that is the character, then the goals, aims, vision of the school is not difficult to be achieved. So a teacher cultivates thousands of students by his or her acharan. Hence, the professional ethics are only his or her power or the samarthya. And because of these, he or she can gain self-respect, respect by other people, pupils, principals, parents, and society. Therefore, the journey of emotional well-being starts on the very first day when an educator is embraced in the arms of his institution, as his or her influence has direct impact on the holistic development of students. So some of the culture that we practice in our schools I would like to share. We don't have any best practices, and as educators, no codified list of best practices. So it means that vigilant school leader get to explore like an astronaut, experiment like a scientist, design like an engineer, and create like an artist to churn out the best. So, and to achieve this, what we do, that our school teachers should have the feeling of freedom in the school, belongingness, as Mr. Philip also said the same, belongingness with the workplace so that they can explore their wings of creativity and perform best. Then whenever we want to have certain, he gave the example of compost pit. I to remember when he said, I also sent the teacher for training for NCC, training for counseling. So they are prepared not only in academics, in other fields also. And whenever they are buying whenever some designated funds in buying school tools, I prefer teachers' voice in selection so that they have increased ownership over those tools and are empowered to use them well. Teachers are provided opportunities to train themselves in various programs, seminars. So as we heard that in-service training, which is very essential because every day things are changed and we cannot remain stagnant in one place. We need to move on. So we need to train our teachers. In-service training is very essential. And it should be according to the subject, according to the interest. Not simply just because we have to give some in-service training, we should not give them. We give them according to their subject, according to their interest. And they need to be encouraged. So we encourage them, appreciate them, guide them. And evaluation of the work done by the teachers makes them work harder. So time to time evaluation, give them the feedback, what they have done, how they have done. So, and our teachers, I appreciate sometimes they come and ask me, so how was it? Whatever program is done, can you give me the feedback? And some of them at least openly accept with openness the feedback and they learn, improve. And also they are also given opportunities to share their classroom innovative policies and the best practices which are implemented by others too, and we acknowledge. And some of the teachers, we keep them in the planning committee. So they too become the part of the family. It's not only the principal who gives them or guides them, it is the whole family, the school family, make them belong to the family, and they will also give the valuable suggestions and act as strong matchmaker in executing any event meticulously. And this is the plus point that I feel, because it's a group work, it's not individual. And sometimes we bring the families together, the families now of the teachers, once in a week, once a year, so that there's a strong bond of unity and togetherness. So the support from the teachers' families also is taken. And our teachers are our strength. Therefore, to empower them with good health, happiness, blissful life, we have special prayers for them, especially when they are in difficulties. The whole school prays for them. And we, even during these days, of course, the WhatsApp is there. So message will be sent so that everybody prays for them. And also we have celebration, common celebration, counseling sessions at times, once a year or twice a year. And then the counselor is there, so they can go meet. Some of them do that. Then outings, time to time orientation programs or in-service training. These are conducted where they can freely get mantra of mental equilibrium at the crucial moments of life. And this in-service training also help them to be empowered. True leaders don't create followers, they create leaders. And thus teachers are divided into different groups according to their abilities, skills, where they share the load and avoid burnout. This has not only encouraged their contribution but also negated the fear of missing out, negative competitive spirit, and damaging morale. So, in addition to the whole school approach to improve well being, individual teachers need to take charge of their own well being in order to flourish. I think even we can give whatever we can, but unless the teachers have the attitude, the desire to learn, nothing can be done. So, every teacher needs to be, whoever takes up this job, needs to be open and we may conduct many courses, but this also depends on the commitment, the desire, attitude from individual teachers. So they can support each other to enhance their well-being. This is what I believe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really enlightening. Ranjana, ma'am, if I may come back to you, from whatever I have heard from you and Sister Lobo so far, and this is because I come from a corporate background myself before getting into education. This is not very dissimilar from what we see in corporate, right? The HR's consideration for framing training programs is exactly this: physical health, emotional health, and need for upgradation. The one place where I do find a difference is in corporate, we would select the least busy times to schedule the training, right? Whereas our experience with this online training that we did for teachers during this pandemic has been at a time when they were already overworked. They already had to kind of cope up with online classes and managing 10 different things. They still had to undergo training. What has been your experience in your school regarding to training, especially during these pandemic times?
When this thing started, everybody has been saying pandemic, pandemic. I'm really actually, I'm sort of wanting to move away from it. But in March, when we were like it was spoken about that schools may be closed for a while and what should we do? So our first instant on 27th March itself, we decided we'll go for online classes. And trust me, as we said, teachers were not very comfortable with it. So the best thing which we did was, because it was not possible for teachers to come to school and all that. So a video was created as to how to take the online classes. And initially we were on Zoom. We moved on to Google Meet after that. But when we started with Zoom, so the whole process of how to download Zoom and how to, conduct a class. And trust me, Shubhayu, I sat with the IT in charges and I tried to understand it first, so that, when they said we'll just talk to the teachers, we'll tell them on WhatsApp and all that. I said, no, you need to create a whole, how to do step-by-step video so that the teachers know how to do it. And from 27th March itself, at least for my senior classes, 6 to 10, I had to make a timetable. We had to look at the time slots, how much of screen time has to be there. We started with 6 to 10. And we passed on these videos and we just asked the teachers, first of all, download Zoom, study it, see the step-by-step, how the stuff has to be done, how children have to be admitted, and, all that kind of thing. It started from there, and wonder of wonders, in I think in 10 days time, I saw the teachers were very comfortable because I was observing their classes. And slowly, innovation started coming in. There might be something which were being used elsewhere, but frankly, my teachers knew about it. I don't think so. But, slowly I saw that system of how they were using a PowerPoint presentation and all that, because initially it was like, doing it somewhat like the classroom system. Some of them had put up a board in their house. They had put a whiteboard. Some had put a chart paper. I was seeing all of it. And I was sort of supporting and, feeling happy about it, that these teachers are going through such pains. And that 10 days time was enough to sort of make me confident that all my classes can go online. So, you'll find it surprising, but from pre-nursery to class 10, all of them were online by mid-April. We were all online. For the little ones, we had a 30-minute capsule where they were singing rhymes and all with the teacher. And imagine these children have not even met their teacher, because this was the first time they would have come to school. So we had a orientation with the parents and all, and with the students there, and the teacher introducing herself and saying, I'm going to be a teacher and we are going to sing rhymes or something like that. It started with the little ones like that. So my little ones had a slot of 30 minutes and 45 minutes. With seniors, we went with 4 slots. And we gave them ample breaks in between. Yes, we had a lot of issues about screen time, about parents, they were not savvy, or we just had one telephone, one mobile with them, and all that was happening. But somehow or the other, we went through WhatsApp, we sent videos, we tried everything under the sun, and it sort of slowly, it started falling in place. And I'll tell you what we did actually. When I saw that the parents were getting very concerned, I took VCs with them. So I went on to Zoom and I conducted VCs with individual classes where the parents were there, and I tried to understand their mindset, because that was a time when we had to, talk about things, and we had to understand how the other person was facing it and how they were undergoing it. It really helped, because the parents were able to talk to me. And I think in a school system, when they come to school, many a times they're not able to meet the principal. But in a VC, they all were, free to ask me questions, to, talk about different things. They were concerned about their children. They were concerned about how the, further classes would go on. So having VCs with the parents was very, very helpful for us. Another thing was, like, I know online PTMs and all have been happening, but what our teachers did was they individually gave a WhatsApp call to the students, a video call, and not asking about bacha kya padhai ho rahi hai, nothing like that. It was like, how are you? How are you faring? What are you doing? When you talk about mental health, when you talk about social well-being. So the kids, usually some of them, when they come to school, they talk about their families, they talk about what's happening. So something similar happened where the teachers had to go out of their comfort zone, and they were making calls, and they were talking to the parents separately, to the students separately, and asking about their well-being. Another of the challenges, but we did it, and the teachers, yes, there were times when the teacher felt, why were we doing all this? Some of them felt that. But once you had undergone that thing, when they called up, and when some of the kids have actually shared with us, they're feeling low, they're not happy at home, or, something or the other happening. Maybe there were cases where the parents were not getting along and all. So they were sharing it with the teacher, and the teacher was sort of counseling them. It's all good. Everything is going to be fine. It's just the pandemic. And, it happens. They were all at home, and whatever was happening in the house was affecting them. So it was a very good step. I mean, it was something which our director sort of asked us that, why couldn't we do something like this? I said, okay, let's try it out, because, everything was coming on the teachers. As you said, the teachers were already overburdened. But Shubhayu, what I feel is, if you give them, like, they had a fixed timetable, we were giving them the full IT support. Initially, I told the teachers, if you have any presentations, you want to look for something, please let me know. I was attending webinars like a maniac, trying to understand what are the tools other schools using, or what are they sharing. They were talking about this and that, and I was trying to understand, can I get my teachers to do all this? So I knew I could not tell them to attend it because they did not have the time. But trust me, in a day, I was attending 3 to 4 webinars, just trying to understand from somewhere if I could get something which my teachers could use. Or, we like being with DPS, we have a DPS principals group. So other principals would put so much of it there. And there were ideas which were coming across, like putting a glass slab and putting the mobile under it, and the math teacher was solving and all. Everything I shared with my teachers. I said, whoever can use, whichever way. I mean, we went to the extent of saying, it was the lockdown, that if any teacher wants a whiteboard at home or a blackboard at home, we would deliver it there so that she finds it easier to teach. And then slowly I saw the teachers, we downloaded the ebooks and sent it to our teachers, and they was doing screen sharing and all that, because they did not have books. I mean, all this was happening, but I think the institutional support was great. And that's where the planning part comes in. So yes, we were planning, we were working from home, but somehow I saw that the teachers rose to the occasion. Because one thing is for sure, they can have sort of they might not be in sync with a few things, they might not like certain things, but the love for the students is something which is unconditional. So if you tell them this is for your students, this is for your bachas, which you have to do it, trust me, every teacher will go a mile. Because in my opinion and in my experience, I've seen very few people who are just doing the job because it's a job. I think most of us are so passionate about the kids, and we are so so in love with our kids overall, that we would do anything for them. I mean, I might have a grouse with the principal or the management or something, but I would never take it out on my kids. I would always think that, my kids should have the best of it. So this is what kept my teachers going. They were ready to do anything for the kids. And I have seen them, coming up with ideas that this can be done, and they were sharing it among themselves. I remember one teacher said, this is the way you can do a presentation, and this is the way you can have the kids doing it. And I said, okay, share it with the others. So this was an in-house kind of thing where you are sharing your best practice. We are blessed because GPS has a whole training system of their own. So they were conducting webinars. Usually I have to send my teachers to Delhi to attend these trainings, but they had a calendar every month. I personally, Shubhayu, look into that calendar and select my teachers whom I have to get them to attend. So the timings are 3 to 5. So that is after my classes get over at 1 o'clock, and 3 to 5 they attended. The CBSE trainings, it's a blessing. I'm sorry to say this, but it was a blessing because CBSE training, when they happen during school time, I have to send my teacher. I have to pay 1,000 rupees for one teacher training, sorry, but I have to do that. And they go for a whole day, and I have to put substitution for my teacher in school. But with CBSE trainings, most of the timings are again after 2:30. It is 100 rupees. Online training is happening, and I am able to send at one point of time 5 to 10 teachers, which I would not have done. I have, let's say, 3 maths teacher, but I would only send 1 math teacher. Forget about the financial part. I cannot have 3 teachers outside the school. But with these webinars and with this online trainings, it's been a blessing. I've been able to send my teachers for subject trainings, for motivational ones, and anything which was curriculum, like we have art integration. This is what NEP is talking about. And that was bothering me, that how do I get my teachers to do art integration? So CBSE has done a series of workshops, and DPS Society has done again the same series of workshops where my teachers of different subjects are going into it and learning how to do art integration in their particular subject. So this has been a fantastic time for them to learn. And now when they've realized the challenge which they faced because of online teaching and all, I think it's opened them up to understand and learn more, because they were like, they were brought out of their comfort zone. They were so complacent. They were like, we are teachers, we are teaching very well. But March, everything changed for them. Trust me, I think they were shaken up badly, especially overnight going for online classes. I knew the fear they had. I knew they were talking to me separately about the concerns, but it was like, yes, I understand, I truly understand. I'm totally with you, but sorry guys, you have to do it. This is what is required because our kids need us. And now I see all of them are so adept. Around June, we changed into Google Meet. And again, there was a slight apprehension, ma'am, Zoom was going fine. Why are we going into Google Meet? But I had a set of parents who were not comfortable with Zoom. There was so much in the news talking about this is happening, security reasons and all. I knew some of them were baseless, but I wanted those children to come online. So we had to go into a secure thing. We went into Google Meet. Again, that new set of training and everything. And then there's a Google policy which you have to download on your mobile. Then you have to go via a domain. Trust me, it has been a challenge every day. I mean, I've been in school, I go there, don't get any time to do anything. People say, what are you doing in school with the kids not being there? But every day is a challenge. Every day trying to get something or the other done. The only thing missing is my kids. I mean, I wish my students were there. But otherwise, we have a fantastic thing. One parent ringing up, I'm not able to log in. A teacher saying, there's connectivity issue here. What should I do? We have tried so many ways. I'll give you another example. With Scholastic, we've got co-scholastic classes also, so like music and dance. And what I observed was, that the dance teacher is taking a class and she has admitting children also. So while she's teaching the mudras or whatever, she's going in between and trying to admit a child. And I said, what is she doing? I mean, I was observing and I asked my teacher, what is she doing? Why is she going again and again there? She said, ma'am, she's trying to admit the students at the same time. I said, oh my God, I didn't realize this problem. So what we had to do was we had to put another teacher as a co-host. And obviously, other teacher will not like it. Bhai, main kitni classes lungi? But I said, please understand, when you're teaching, you can still sort of admit kids. But when she's dancing or she's playing a musical instrument, how is she going to be admitting students? So these were the challenges which happened during this time. And, I have learned a lot. I have understood how to plan things. Obviously, we always have a plan B and all. But this sort of got me thinking into so many spaces which I would not have, earlier thought about. So definitely coming back to the part that when we had to train teachers, CBSE trainings, TPS trainings, our own, like, my IT team has been wonderful. They've been making videos of everything because IT training was a must. And that was something, fortunately, since I had joined school, I had ensured that every teacher knows computer work and she knows how to type, and presentations and all are there. So most of them were savvy, except it was like when they were taking online classes, they needed to understand better how to, sort of mute, unmute. Many a times they were actually, the audio was not on and they were speaking, and obviously discipline of the kids. The kids had a chance of trying every stunt under the sun, videos on and all that. So they did share all that. But overall, I think just giving step-by-step guidelines, videos have helped, and sending it to the teachers and asking them to go through them, follow them to the T, and giving them unconditional support. The IT team has been 24/7 on their mobiles, listening to every issue which the teacher has presented and trying to sort it out. So that support which they got, where they knew that there's somebody who's doing the hand holding, I think that gave confidence to the teachers also, because it was not like ab to ye karna hai to karo, bas hum nahi jante kaise karna hai. That was not the thing. He said, you do it. We are at the back end. We are going to handle all this. So I had the IT teams hosting most of the, these online classes initially, so that they were there to mute people if the kids were misbehaving and all that. Many a times I have jumped into the online classes. When I am there, I saw there was a discipline issue. I came into the VC. And this was again a very good opportunity for me to actually get into the classes and interact with students, and at the same time tell them, I'm watching you people. So, there's an observer which comes in and they're like, ma'am has come, ma'am has come. So they know that I am looking at the classes or I'm observing the classes. So again, this was a support for the teachers. They knew I was there. Yes, they were a little, okay, ma'am is observing a class, but I was not judging them. To be very frank, I told them, please don't get bothered about me coming there. Yes, I want to see how you're doing it, but I also want to see that the kids are really, taking it in and they're not misbehaving. Because yes, the kids were playing up to some extent. But now when I see it, they're so set in it. I said, ऐसा लग रहा है कि you've never done classroom teaching in your life. You've only done online teaching. So the point is that somehow we did a lot of handholding. We did a lot of handholding. And when I talk about empowering teachers in non-COVID times, the training part, yes. The need analysis, what they need is very important. So you empower them accordingly. Like, for example, if a teacher who's been teaching for 20 years, not very comfortable with computers, you don't put her amongst the advanced younger generation to do computers. I mean, she's going to feel out of place, and somehow that seniority factor is there. So what I would do was I would put them into a basic course. I would get a young teacher who knew computers to become a buddy for her, and she would help out that teacher in understanding, from switching on buttons and all. This is what I have seen earlier in 2010 and all, 12 and all, I saw something like this happening. But at the same time, this buddy system worked in a very different way. I myself have experienced it that when I was there as a young teacher and I had senior teachers with me, I knew computers, I would do the typing work and everything. And the senior teachers would give me that kind of experience and the understanding how to frame questions, how to make a question paper, how to, because they were all, they had been in the board invigilations and corrections and everything. How do I get that experience without being there? But that's where I learned from them. So, this buddy system worked in the trainings. The young ones had the seniors understand computers, the presentations and all that. And the senior teachers, I would tell them when the time would come for a presentation to be done by the teacher, that the senior teacher would talk about the content, the delivery of, the curriculum, the pedagogical skills and all that. This is something the young ones don't know. Sorry to say, but the B.Ed, which is happening, many of them are just paid B.Eds. Because you need a B.Ed degree, you are paying some institute, you're not even joining those courses and all. There are incidents like this which we see. So how does that teacher get trained? I have had contact with such kind of teachers also. But somehow, because they had joined the system, they were part of the system, they had so-called B.Ed degree with them, they had to be given that training. I could not throw them out because on papers they were qualified to be there. So for them to have that training, the senior teachers taking them under their wings and training them, it's so helpful. It's so fantastic. I can't tell you, because that's something which has worked in the past and that works now also. Yes, the senior teachers, when they are there, they expect the junior teachers to really respect them and all. The junior teachers are kind of like, we are colleagues. I mean, corporate system, first names and all that. But I have had to do that kind of counseling also. See, bachas, you have to do this. And with the senior teachers, ma'am, please understand, they are young ones, young blood. Hai. Aap apne bachcho ki tarah inko treat karo. I have done all this, but it has worked. It has really worked. As working as a mediator, I had to do all this, and I feel we were able to do a good job about it. Definitely, because many of those teachers with whom I have worked, they have gone on to go to other institutes, better institutes and all. And when I have always got back to them, they said, ma'am, it was great. The trainings which we got, the kind of exposure which we got has helped us to get where we are today. And I feel for me also, coming to this position here, training was one of the main things, because I was hungry for that training which were there, the learning which would happen there. I was very, very hungry for it. So that is how it started for me. And today also, I'm a firm believer of teacher training. I mean, you can get an average person, but you can make that person into a great teacher. Content development, yes, but subjective knowledge, you give them the right kind of content, they can do it. We have got so much available to us today. But the attitude which is there, when you nurture it and you give them that confidence that you're good, that attitude, the confidence, the effectiveness, the efficiency, everything comes over. You just have to give a pat on the back and you tell them you're doing a great job. And when you do in-service training, that's the time when you really put them up. Appraisals, as Mr. Bharat said, great ones. You tell them, how many trainings did you take? Not what you attended, but how many did you take? You see the teacher gets that confidence to deliver in front of their colleagues. And after that, that hunger for knowing more is there. And the confidence comes over to also interact with students, because when I'm not confident, I tell the student to shut up if a question is asked which I do not know about. Sometimes you say, what are you asking? This is this is not what we are discussing. But when you are a confident teacher, when you have the knowledge, or you are well read, you have really, known people around you and you've updated yourself, the student is asking anything out of context. You have that confidence to interact and talk about it. And the beauty of it is, if you do not know, and I have faced it myself, I'm like, okay, I really do not know the answer to this. Can I get back to you? because I am confident about it that I am interacting with the student and I know that the student is not judging me. But if I'm not confident, if I have that complex in me, I'm going to tell the student, तुमको ज़्यादा पता है या मुझे ज़्यादा पता? I am the teacher or you are the teacher. I have seen these instances. But that doesn't happen when you are empowered yourself. And as Sister Lobo said, you give that autonomy to the teachers. You give them the authority to plan the curriculum, to teach the class the way they want to teach it. You know, classroom is your domain. I'm not going to interfere there. You do the teaching the way you want to do it. You want to dance, you want to sing, you want to do a practical, you want to take them out and teach them in the garden and all. Do it. Do it as long as the children are learning. You don't interfere with that, and trust me, the teacher will do a fantastic job, because understand, if she's taking that initiative to get the children out of the rote learning or the chalk and talk method, that means she's thinking. She's a teacher who's thinking ahead. So give her that kind of authority, the kind of autonomy she requires to do things her way, because many a times I've seen systems are so set. Systems are set and they sort of tell you कि ऐसे ही करना है. Then the teacher cannot be innovative. She can't be. I have been in the same place. I know it checks your innovation, it checks your initiative. So give that autonomy to the teachers, empower them that way. Then trust me, don't have to do anything after that. They will do wonders themselves. I think I've taken enough of your time.
No, no, ma'am. It's absolutely fantastic to hear about this. And the one thing that we always keep saying, we cannot overstate the way teachers have stepped up to the mantle to,
True.
take care of the kids during this pandemic. And we hope that we have been able to help your webinar mania to some extent.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
abs-
definitely. I mean, I've been a constant person with your webinar, and I just need to share it. I was attending a DPSS principal training. It was by ASCII Hyderabad, and one of the speaker, Mr. Raghunath Iyengar or something. You know what he said? The day prior, 18th, he said, I attended a webinar of Notebook, inclusive education. I was like, wow, wow, I was also there. So, that was something I was surprised, because somebody in Hyderabad and talking about something like that. We were 50 DPS principals. And when he said it, and I was like, wow, I was there. So, Notebook is going places if we
Thank
are
you so much,
talking
ma'am.
about it in ASCII.
Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic journey for us as well. Sister Lobo, if I may come to you next. Ma'am, Ranjana ma'am just spoke about the various kinds of curricular training that went on. One of the things that again came from all these webinars is the need for emotional well-being.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, in your school, ma'am, how do you ensure that kind of training for your teachers to deal with the child's emotional well-being?
Yeah. Actually, what I said in the previous one, part of it also is helps a person to ensure well-being of the person. Okay, uh, like psychological, emotional development. First of all, the teacher has to be strong enough, emotionally strong. So ensure that build trust. Again, I could say the same thing. The freedom, if you give, the trust, build the trust, relationships, and if you have that strong bond, the teacher is also going to help the students, going to reach out to students. When the teacher is loved, cared, supported by the, as ma'am said, ma'am Sahi said, okay, if they are getting a lot of support from the management, definitely the teacher is going to love those students, take care of them, and do the best for them. So when she feels loved, and as she also said, when they do something wrong, okay, not to judge them, not to judge, but to support, guide them. And I think Sir Philip also said about uh, whenever they need our help, to reach out to them, to reach out to them. So they feel good, accepted, cared for, loved, encouraged. So this uh, helps them to be more strong and then help their students. This is what I would say. And other points I've already shared, so I wouldn't like to repeat. And I said that calling them together for the get-togethers and all, also building that positive trust and relationship will help them to grow.
Wonderful, ma'am. Ranjana ma'am, just one quick question because you spoke
Yeah.
about peer-to-peer learning that you're doing. Did you also do this with your school counselor and your other teachers?
Yes. So I was going to come to this because I was listening to Sister Lobo. This emotional well-being and social well-being, when we speak about it, uh, when I was in Delhi, this inclusive education was something which not everybody understood. And we had a lot of trainings where the special educator was brought in. And surprises of surprises, whenever a teacher was talking about to the special educator, they said, this child misbehaves in the class. Now, behavioral issues don't come under special needs. But this was the biggest eye opener that the teachers do not understand the difference between special needs and this. So it started there. We had a lot of sessions where a special educator, I told the special educator to take sessions with the teachers and explain to them what is a behavioral issue and what is actually special need. And something like that, when I saw, slowly the teachers gained that kind of information and confidence to understand that a child misbehaving in the class is not a child with special need. That was the time when Tare Zameen Par had been released. And trust me, I remember a PTM where a parent was saying, "Isko wohi hai jo Tare Zameen Par usko hai." That's this is a true incident, and I was shocked. What is this parent saying? But at the same time, as a teacher, also I learned how to, if not totally identify, I could actually understand why a student was behaving in a particular fashion. And yes, I had uh, the experience of working with some special needs kids. And Shubhayu, I need to say this. As a principal, special needs children have a special thing from CBSE. They get a lot of, there are certain things like a 1 hour extra and all. And there are certain conditions which are always put, by this time, this information has to come. But, I had a very good surprise here also, because there were certain times the parents are not accepting about it. I had to convince parents कि अपने बच्चे का करवाइए, medical दीजिए, because the child can benefit. The child is a special need kid. The special educator has already identified, but the acceptance from the parents was not there. And finally, when they accepted, the time had gone to report to CBSE. But I still sent those papers to CBSE, and I requested that because the parent was not willing, please consider this child's thing. Trust me, Shubhayu, within 1 week, I got approval from CBSE. Those kids, I received a text from the mother. One of them is in Amsterdam. He is doing something on sustainable development. The other child, his father told me that he had done his graduation and post graduation from Jamia. These were children who got last moment acceptance from the parents, helped us to send it. So, the system, CBSE is supporting them. We are asking the parents to accept a condition. Don't take it that the child is being, sidelined or is being marked. It's okay. The child is gifted in some other way. So let that child have that benefit. And the same thing, I'm doing it here also, Shubhayu, that the teachers have to have training. And here I'm in a small town. Here special educators and all are not available the way I had the privilege in Delhi. But I've been lucky. I have managed to find a special educator. And tomorrow, I think on Saturday, I'm having a webinar with special educators from Shikshantar. So there was a teacher who came from Shikshantar who joined DPS Haldwani. She has contacted her colleagues to conduct a webinar from my teachers on special educators, special education and how to identify. This is how things work. This is, if I cross over the boundaries, rather than being in a competitive mode, if I start helping the teachers of other school and other teachers help my school, we can learn so much better. That is something which is lacking in certain areas. I wish it could be open. I am still in touch with colleagues in Delhi of mine, and I ask them, can you do this for me? Can you talk to my teachers? Because we're in a small town. These teachers are not exposed to the Delhi metro culture and all, So I tell them, and they are ever ready to come forward. And slowly the teachers with which I'm working now, my team of teachers, they have become so advanced because they've been to Delhi thanks to DPS Society. So again the fact comes in, the teachers have opened up to the idea. I was also under this impression, they are so set, they know ki hame sab kuch aata hai. But slowly, I think with my constant prodding and, always going after them, that training is so important. I personally have taken a lot of trainings with them, and I tell them this is an advantage and privilege which you get. And when they've attended training in Delhi with the other DPS teachers, they have come back and they're like, man, wow, this is like it was in another world for us. And now when they're attending webinars, they are like, again, I take a feedback from them. So they're supposed to write a synopsis of what they learned. And they have, like, if the school was open, they would have had to give the same presentation to their colleagues in school. So it's a reiteration of whatever they've learned, a kind of revision. It really helps. It really helps. So all this, if any school, I'm telling you, you don't have the resources, you just do a neat analysis. You ask the teachers what you want and what you can give, and then accordingly plan a training calendar. Yes, there has to be a budget, but if you're a school who cannot give too much of a budget, amongst your teachers, there are teachers who are very, very good with something. I had in Delhi many teachers who had done a counseling and guidance course. So they were supposed to take counseling for the other teachers and tell them how to do counseling. So I could proudly say that all my teachers were good counselors in Delhi. And the same thing is something which I'm trying to put in here. I tell them you don't need a counselor. Trust me, you don't need a counselor. Every teacher is a counselor, and she can do a better job than a counselor. I'm telling you, you don't need a degree for it. You just need to listen to the other person, be it a child or an adult, and then usually I put myself in their place. If I was in that position, what would I have done? How would I have acted? It helps. Even as a teacher, when Sister Lobo said, you have to understand them. Yes, if a teacher comes to me with a problem, yes, sometimes my position does not allow me to be show that much empathy as I could have. But at the same time, I do tell the teacher, I understand what you're going through. In your position, I do understand. But there's certain facts where I can help you and certain facts where I can't. So I give them a middle way. I do give them a middle way. I have never left them high and dry. That's something which I wouldn't do ever. Earlier, in my previous school, I used to say, "Main hoon na." That's what I used to say if they would get into any kind of thing. I said, "Main hoon na. You tell me what your problem is." Unfortunately, here I am not so much in, because there I was for 15 years, I could joke about it. Here I'm slowly trying to build up that foundation and working on it, that the teachers trust me enough to share, because once they are happy, they have a high happiness quotient. My kids are going to be taken care of. See, I am going to be selfish. I want my kids to be happy. And for them to be happy, my teachers need to be happy. So how do I keep them happy? That is something which I can do or the management can do. So there we help out. Yes, family, if they have family issues, problems, as far as possible, we try to solve. I won't say 100% we can do it, but as much as possible, we try to do it. We can do it, and it really helps, because that just that thing that yes, there's somebody on whom I can fall back on. That is enough. That is enough for them to keep going. You might not be able to do anything, but you give them a patient hearing and you tell them, I understand. I know what you're going through. And that is enough for them, because I think 80% of the time, it is just that you want somebody to listen to you with an empathic, with a sympathetic ear. That's it, what they want. They don't want you to give a solution. And I need to take out that time. So I do take out that time to listen to them whenever possible. I have tried to do it. And that's something which I'll share with others also. You just listen. As teachers, we love to talk. We hate to listen. But as a principal, I have had to have that patience to listen to everything, so that if nothing, I was able to give them that kind of, consolation that, yes, I am there for you. I might not have done anything, but I might have just listened to them. And that was enough for them. So it's all part of teacher empowerment. Because if the teacher trusts me and knows that I'm there for them, they will share everything with them, for professional, personal, anything. Because I believe unless and until they are happy, nothing else will work. Nothing else can work. It can't. You have to be passionate, but you have to be happy. You have to sort of get them to be happy, to then move that further step of, that fire in the belly can only come once you're happy. If I'm going to be thinking about all the issues I'm facing, I won't be able to think as what next I need to do. So yes, I need to come out from my complacent zone and get into it. And for that, the teachers need to be happy. So they have to take care of their own well-being, but at the same time, they have to have trust. They need to have faith in the system in which they are, good or bad. Everything cannot be their way, but they need to have that faith and trust in the system. And I'm sure things work out. Things will work out.
Wonderful, ma'am. This is absolutely heartwarming. Couple of excuse me, couple of things though. One is, ma'am, thanks to Together for Education, we've had quite a few school counselors and psychologists that we are in touch with. So
Yeah.
if ever, if you feel, and this goes out to everybody out there, if you at your school feel that you need some professional help with terms of students' mental health, some online session, we would be more than happy to connect you with the counselors that we are in touch with, and then you can work out a schedule for yourselves. That is one thing. Second is, ma'am, this was a very reflex action or a reflex reaction to what you said, to a parent standing up saying, इसको वही है जो ईशान अवस्थी को है. Please, ma'am, next time tell the father, उसको नहीं, आपको वही है जो ईशान अवस्थी के बाप को है. That I think would be an appropriate response.
Yeah. But it was something which I was able to handle. That time I was a teacher. So I was able to handle it, and I had to tell the parent, please do not do this because this is wrong. You are unnecessarily putting a stigma into things, and you're just bracketing your child. Maybe the child is a special need kid, but you don't have to sort of label it like that. That's why sometimes cinema can work. They overdo things, and parents sort of relate to that. That's sometimes which happens. But part of my job, part of our teaching learning process.
Can I
Wonderful.
share?
Sure,
Can I
ma'am.
share in this? Yeah,
Absolutely, ma'am.
at times it's very difficult for the parents to accept the children. So what they do, they blame the teacher. Teacher is not teaching, or the problem with others, not with their child. So, and that is part of our, actually we need to motivate our teachers also. In the classroom also, our teacher has to accept everyone. That is called inclusive education. Accept the students as they are. Because even when the teachers come to us, they say, this child doesn't know anything. So what happens to the child? The child gets humiliated and doesn't, what's that? And this particular thing also makes the child not to learn, because already the negative message has gone to the child, and the child doesn't make any progress in studies also. First of all, we have to accept the child as he or she is, and for that we have to train our teachers to accept them. Then only the parents will accept. So it is on both the sides. That's why counseling is very essential for a teacher in today's time, I feel.
What Sister Lobo said, I have this real life experience. What, yes, teachers need to be told. We did handle some special need kids, but the kids are very good with it. I don't know. I saw we had these children in different sections. The kind of response from the peers was beautiful. Many a times I remember there was a play which was happening and the child was on a wheelchair. So obviously the child was not participating in the play. And the teacher and the kid came up with the they added something into the play where the child would be on stage they showed him as a grandparent or something and would be on a wheelchair. So the child was brought onto the stage, doing nothing, was part of the play, but beautiful. And this idea came from the students and teachers. So you can understand, once acceptance comes in, and the kids are very good with this. Kids do not differentiate. It's the adults who do it. I know it for sure, because that particular incident opened my eyes to the fact that the children do not need to be counseled. It's this, the adults which have to be counseled. As Sister Lobo said, yes, many a times the teachers do not know how to handle these students. So they need to be counseled, because I think kids do not differentiate. It's only us who sort of put that kind of thing into them, because I have had the pleasure of having kids who were so supportive of the children in their class who were with special needs. And I had, I think, around 40 of them in Delhi. So the kids really helped out well. And with teacher counseling, I've seen it really work. So I agree with Mr. Lobo on this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you both for this wonderful discussion. I think we have comprehensively understood that schools operate two teaching organizations, one that we see from the outside for the students, and the second, obviously, for their own teachers. Again, thank you so much for sparing your time for this. I will now hand this back to Achin for the vote of thanks. It's been an absolute privilege. Thank you. Achin, over to you.
Thank you, Shubhayu. I think great session we had. A very interesting insights as far as the discussion goes. In fact, as far as this topic is concerned, empowering educators, something very close to our heart. As many of you here, as esteemed educators are aware, that during pandemic, during last few months, starting April, we conducted so many online trainings over Zoom. The objective was not only to handhold esteemed teachers with regard to how to use our platform, but also digital online learning in general. So more than 1,000 schools, we are very fortunate and very privileged that more than 1,000 schools gave us the opportunity, and we were able to interact with so many teachers, almost a lakh of them. But I must confess that as far as learning goes, we as a brand, as a team, have also learned so much from all of you. We have been extremely blessed, extremely privileged. In fact, I'll share an experience very recently, last week. I was in a roundtable conference, in a virtual roundtable conference, hosted by Business World. And this video is up in public domain. The moderator, she's an extremely senior journalist, group editor. While introducing me as the founder and CEO of Notebook, also specifically mentioned that as a brand, we are extremely pro-educator. And I guess this is something where we are very different from many of our esteemed peers. And I must say that during these trainings that we conducted over Zoom during last few months, we had some fantastic experience. And what I really liked is, if I may share one or two small experiences, what I really liked is the kind of resolve that I saw till such time, and some very senior educators, let me say, till such time, they were completely convinced and hands-on. They kept on asking questions and they ensured that they understand and they applied. So that's something fantastic, great. So I think it has been a great discussion. Bharat sir, thank you so much for starting the discussion on such a positive note, giving some great examples. And really so happy to know about your visionary principal who had sent you for trainings, exchange programs overseas, and how they helped and how these programs helped in shaping up your thought process. Indeed wonderful. And I must say it's an example. Ranjana ma'am and Sister Lobo, thank you so much for your time by being with us here today and sharing your experience. And some very interesting things came up during the course of discussion. Ranjana ma'am, I think you really summed up when you said, "Main hoon na." That sums up ownership. A sense of ownership, sense of commitment that goes beyond words. I think that is the kind of support that teachers look forward to in a principal. It's a great example. I must share and appreciate. And I also like the way you put it, that I'm just being selfish because I want my kids to be happy. And they'll be happy only when my teachers are happy. I think very appropriately captured. Couldn't have been articulated better, if I may put it that way. Really great. And Sister Lobo, I think one thing that you said is the essence of the evening, is the spirit of the evening. And it really captures the message that I'm sure in this forum, all of us who are exchanging our views, we all go home with this message tonight. I think I completely agree with you when you said that only someone who is willing and passionate to be a lifelong student can be a great teacher. Very, very well said. Very, very well said. It's not only about acquiring great academic accomplishments and then being on board as a teacher. I think learning is a lifelong process. And especially if you're interested with the job of building our next generation, if you're assigned with the responsibility of shaping up the future of our nation and our civil society, I think no other task can be as important as this. Thus, passion, commitment, and love for lifelong learning are really indispensable qualities, if I may put it that way. I think great discussion we had, and I thank all of you, all members of the esteemed audience, for your time and support. It is with your support that we are growing from strength to strength with each episode. And we look forward to your comments and suggestions with regard to choice of topics, choice of format, and any other aspect. This is your platform. Please feel free to come forward and contribute. Thank you. Thank you. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you.